Hi everyone, this is Vontos with part 3 of my Age of Wonders 3 co-op series with Bob of Black Arrow Gaming. Last episode I didn't have a whole lot going on. I'm sheltered enough in the north that I'm not in immediate threat of attack. I have an army that is strong enough to easily take out all the structures, and though it's probably strong enough to attack an enemy, it's not as big as I'd like it to be. So I spent that episode building up, clearing out everything in my land, and watching Bob fight a lot of battles. I'm gonna be honest, this episode is mostly the same. It's less than half the length of Bob's for a reason. If you want to skim through this one, you aren't going to hurt my feelings. Episode 4, released on Friday, should have a lot more going on for me. Alright, let's go ahead and start playing. I have two key objectives in tonight's episode. The first is to get my main army down in a position to attack Green's throne. I'm first going to swing it west, though, to clear out a couple structures by my second city, and this will also get me in more of a direct line to attack Green. Then I'll be able to send it straight through both of the other green cities that we found, as well as clear out a monster den that could start spawning things at any moment. The other thing I need to do is build up an army just in case two or more of the enemies suddenly attack me. In my second city I'm going to be building orc priests, and first I need a temple before I can make those. I considered building a siege workshop to get the extra production, but I don't think it would be worth the time I'd spend building the siege workshop. My throne city will be building crusaders. An army of crusaders and orc priests should be pretty tough to beat unless they send their entire force. I will also be using my crusaders to go clear out that dungeon by my throne. I think 6 orc crusaders with tireless and with life stealing should be able to take out the Manticore Rider, Berserker, and everything else that's in there. Even if I don't take out everything, I will at least do some pretty serious damage and be able to go in and mop it up with other units. Once I've finished clearing out that dungeon, I will then send my crusader up and around the rapids to go clear out that haunted boneyard that's threatening my other city. If I don't get there in time though, and the boneyard does start spawning units, the orc priests that I build in that city are actually pretty great for defending against them. Their Banefire does do some blight damage that haunted boneyard units are immune to, but the other two channels of damage are Spirit and Fire that the boneyard units are weak to. So overall it's still a pretty good attack. The orc priests also begin with 40% blight protection, and they will have an additional 20% due to the first medal that they get that they will start with. So with 60% blight protection, which becomes 80% blight protection on their second promotion, they will be immune to a lot of the attacks from the units in a haunted boneyard, which tends to spawn things like wraiths and bone dragons and carrion birds, units that do a lot of physical damage but also do some blight damage. Actually finished my turn about 20 minutes before Bob does there, and I don't think I click on any of the battle results. So if you want to see what happened with him, you should go check out his channel, which I have linked to in my description. He has one battle that goes pretty well for him. He has another battle where he makes a few mistakes and loses some pretty important units. I probably should have helped him out a little. There was an enemy unit that was bleeding and he didn't notice. I should have told him that it was bleeding, saved him well, he used his hero to attack that unit and finish it off, instead of attacking a different unit with his hero. If he'd known it was bleeding, he probably would not have lost his hero in that battle. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that Bob hadn't noticed it was bleeding, so I didn't say anything until it was too late. That was a mistake on his part, but it was also a mistake on my part. I should have been communicating more as a teammate. Most of what you see me doing this episode is scouting. I got out quite a few cherubs. Having a scout that can fly, float, or swim is really nice on these continent maps I see. I'm picking up a lot of mana and gold that's just sitting out there that the enemies haven't found yet. If you're playing against humans, you especially want to get scouts out to find your enemy's position as well as pick up all this gold. But even against AIs, it's nice to have intelligence on where everything is, where all the independent cities are, where enemies' armies are. Even against an enemy predictable like a computer AI, it's still nice to know what's going on. My monkey has scouted out pretty much everything there is to see on this piece of land. Could have sent it across the water to scout some more, but I actually end up sending it back. He's going to join my main army, since I only have 5 units in it. I didn't want to add a 6th because all my other units are on foot. They would just slow this army down. Monkey's fast enough that can keep up. It's a terrible unit, but it's better than nothing. It's another easy battle against halflings. Able to get a few promotions for my heroes and my shock trooper during this episode. Deadly army becomes even more deadly. I have my 3rd hero in this army. I usually don't like to have 3 heroes in the same army, but since all my other units at the moment are so slow, I decided to keep the fast hero here. He'll also help, since he's a Theocrat and I'm going to fight against Necromancer's units, he will be a pretty big help there as well. Finally going to be able to transform that last mana node to a destruction node. City's borders will grow in 2 turns. It will take 3 turns to get that. I didn't have the menu up for long. Oh, there it is. See, I'm building a Masters Guild before I start building Crusaders. That will give me just enough production once my city grows to be able to get a Crusader out 1 every turn instead of 1 every 2 turns. So in this case, spending 4 turns building the Masters Guild will benefit me in the long run, since I will be building more than 4 Crusaders. This northeastern corner turned out to be more empty than I was expecting. My scout ultimately dies before I'm able to explore the entire corner, so maybe there is another small independent city up there. But overall, it looks like pretty much empty land that Bob or I could expand out into. Same with the northwest corner. There's a lot more water in the northwest, but it's still completely empty in terms of cities. resources on the ground. I haven't kept track of how many resources I just picked up lying on the ground. But I bet I've funded most everything I've built to this point. Most every spell I've cast to this point with them. I didn't comment on it, but I'm researching Smite right now. Smite is a spell that does spirit damage. It has a certain chance of doing full damage to a unit, and if that fails, then it still does half damage to the unit. I don't know exactly what the formula determining whether it does full damage or half damage is, but units that are weak to spirit damage tend to have full damage done to them more often. Does that make sense? So like if a unit has no spirit, weakness, or resistance, there's a 50% chance that Smite will do, say, 32 damage to that unit, and a 50% chance that Smite will do 16. If a unit's weak to spirit, it might be 75 of doing even more than 32 damage, and a 25% chance of doing more than 16 damage to that unit. Since I'm going up against ghoul units, most likely, that the Necromancer has, I should be able to do pretty serious damage to them with Smite. I'll probably talk about that more when I actually get to use it in a battle. Most of you watching this have probably used the spell already, so you know what I'm talking about, but it can be kind of tricky to understand if you're not looking at the screen. Bob's getting attacked by a small green army there. Hopefully green's overreaching, which will leave his throne vulnerable. His army was pretty weak. The AI tends to overestimate Lost Soul's power. When that army does get to Bob City and attack it, it said that it said the battle was a probable defeat for Bob, but he ended up winning it fairly easily. This battle was only slightly tougher than most. In fact, how easy it was taking out these tier 2 units and tier 3 unit is really encouraging for me. Should have no problem handling green. I do get in a position at the end where he could have converted my priest. Even if he had done that, I would have killed his evangelist right away. I was never in any threat from any of these units, even though they are decently strong for this point. Here I run up, try to use killing momentum to kill both of them in one turn, and come reasonably close. He decides to suicide his evangelist against my shock trooper rather than trying to convert it. Probably because he knew it wouldn't matter anyway. My scout got attacked by bandits. That happens a lot the next couple turns. Clearing out that lost library will let me build a magic academy in this city, which will give my support units extra resistance, and what else does it give them? I will look that up. I should remember it though. But that will just make my orc priests even better. The extra resistance, and Okay, they get +1 melee and +1 range damage and +1 resistance. When a unit has 3 channels of damage like the priest does, the +1 range damage I think always affects the first channel of damage. So with Banefire, the first channel is Spirit, second is Blight, third is Fire. So it will increase my Spirit damage, not increase my Blight or my Fire damage. Which is pretty great, since Spirit damage is what I'm trying to do in this case. Yet another dwelling up here in the northwest corner. They seem to be concentrated in the corner of this map. I briefly considered attacking this longbowman with my monkey. I was thinking, since the monkey's basically a throwaway unit anyway that I don't really want to keep paying upkeep on, I might as well take a shot at killing off a longbowman. In the end, I decided not to because I don't want to give the longbowman extra experience. There's that first green city that my main army is heading toward, defended by only a single unicorn rider. Conveniently, it has a destruction node in its borders, which will be great for me. I just cleared out all those battle summaries from Bob's Battles. I've been meaning to click on them to at least show what happened in them for those of you watching my video and not his. But if you want to see what he's doing, what's going on with his, you should at least go skim through his videos. Gonna send my monkey to go get that. And then have him join my main army when he's done. Here comes the battle. It's at Bob's throne. He doesn't have a huge army defending it. Actually, I think the battle might be next turn. Because he gets a hero popping up at a convenient time. Another scout dying. I always uncheck cast spells during auto combat because I don't want to take the chance of my leader using up magic points casting spells in a battle I'm not going to win anyway. I thought about sending my army to go grab those haste berries. I don't know if it would have been a quicker way to get down, but ultimately I remembered that I hadn't cleared out these ancient ruins yet. So I went this way and do this. Another battle against a bunch of tier 2 units that isn't much of a challenge. This could have gone badly for me if I hadn't set my units up right. If I left one of my weaker heroes out in the open, he could have been hit by 2 or 3 of those berserkers and gotten killed. So I tried to keep them protected behind my shock troopers like they are now, and behind my black knights. I also set up the shock troopers in a gap in that little wall there so that only one berserker can get in and hit them. And then set up all my ranged units behind them and stun them to death. Had to make a bit of a decision with my Black Knight, because if he took hits from both of those berserkers he could die. What I decided to do was use Warcry, take out this first one, then come over and use Bestow Iron Heart on him. Actually, I think since he killed the first Berserker in one hit, I didn't need Bestow Iron Heart. That's right. Had it taken 2 hits to kill that first Berserker, then I would have used Bestow Iron Heart on him, give him a little extra health to help him survive the attack from that next Berserker coming up. Now I give him Iron Heart to get my leader some experience. Finish him off with my Sorcerer. All 3 of my heroes leveled up in that battle. And you might have noticed my Shock Trooper got up to Champion 1 promotion in the previous battle, which gave him an extra 10 hit points to an already nearly unbeatable unit. Got a Frostling Fishing Spear, which isn't that useful, but I didn't want to just click sell, which would have caused me to sell the research that I got in that battle as well. Now I'm level 7, I can get Convert and Healing. Healing only costs 4 upgrade points. I said in a previous video that it costs 5 upgrade points. That allows me to get an extra ranged strength rank. My other Theocrat hero will eventually lead his own army, so for now I'm going to give him Bestow Iron Heart, something that is useful whether he's just a member of someone else's army or leading his own army. I'm waiting for Chaos Rift to come up for my Sorcerer. I have enough casting points. No, I need one more casting points upgrade. Chaos Rift costs 70 casting points to cast. One of the best spells, one of the best in-battle tactical spells in the game. There I've met a hostile independent. Also found some white units. White is the Frostling Archdruid. I don't know where her cities are yet. Those units look like they might be headed toward Bob. It's not a big threatening army, but it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. There might be big threatening units in front of it or behind it. Feeling pretty secure at the moment. All my scouts haven't found any enemies coming my direction, so I'm queuing up a settler before I start building my priests. Part of the reason for that is I'm currently researching Beacon of Faith, which increases population growth in the city that I cast it on. That will let me build a settler now without causing quite as much of a delay in my city's population growth. There's Bob dealing with more problems while I sit up in the north doing very little. It's too bad we don't have any land bridges connecting us. I'm really not able to help him much with any of his invaders. There's Bob's hero we got. He's another Archdruid. And he was able to create a longbowman. I was a little surprised that the AI still attacked the city, even though Bob has a pretty good defensive force there. When it's estimating the combat odds, it tends to think that Lost Souls are going to be a lot better than they actually are, probably because Lost Souls get Resurgence. In reality, the Lost Souls Resurgence ability is not that great. You're usually able to block it by standing on top of the spot where they died, and even if you can't do that, you can usually take them out before they hit you again after they've resurged. Bob did lose his hero that he just bought, though. That hurts a little bit, but it's a lot better than losing his throne city. I'm finally starting to research casting points. I figure since I'm starting to cast more spells on my city, casting Beacon of Faith, and soon I'll be casting Paid Absolution on them. I want to be able to cast those as quickly as possible, as well as having Smite, which I will want to be able to cast more in battles than I could at the moment. Those mountains are in a really convenient spot for green. If they hadn't been there, I probably could have taken his city this turn. I have mountains in a convenient spot as well in my third city, protecting it from the west and from the south. So I can't complain too much about the terrain. I end up stunning that Spider Queen every single turn this battle, I think. Wish I had an Archdruid to go befriend it, or a rogue to go charm it. I really like having strong animals. The Spider Queens and Snake Kings, I think, are some of the best units in the game. Could have run up and killed him with my Shock Trooper. I decide to use this chance to get my Theocrat hero a little bit more experience before I go attack some green cities. Stun it to let me finish it off with a melee hit. Got a jewel item which protects me against frost. Give that to my Draconian since he has a bit of a frost weakness anyway. Some of these Necromancer units I'm going up against, plus some of the Necromancer spells do frost damage, so this will be really nice to have in the upcoming battles. There's the city, still defended by only one Unicorn Rider. Sure to tune in on Friday for the next episode, where I will win yet another battle, this time taking an enemy city. And there's some good structures around that city. Sitting on an island protected by mountains too. City's gonna probably be sitting right in between our border and the enemy's borders once we've taken out green. There might be some pretty big battles for control of that one. There, see, I actually did show the battle summary for Bob. You can see that he lost his hero, also lost his longbowman that he just built this turn. So in the end, he ends up with exactly the same army as he had a turn ago. Beginning to cast Beacon of Faith to put on my second city to make up for the settler that I'm building. Okay, notice that my Crusaders are taking 2 turns to build, even though they should only be taking 1. I couldn't figure out why that was, and the problem ends up solving itself in a moment. My base happiness actually declined. When you become more evil or more good, you get a plus 100 happiness bonus for 10 turns. I think my 10 turn bonus ran out right here. So I lost that 10 happiness for this city. That decline in happiness was just enough to slow my Crusader production down. So initially I was going to cancel that production build a public baths to get my plus 100 happiness back, which would still make building the Crusaders faster in the long run. But something happens before then, which gets my happiness back up. Bob is sending a scout underground, and he meets an independent city. When he does that, I'm able to declare war on that city, which gives me just enough evil points to go from slightly evil to regular evil, which is just enough to give me plus 100 happiness, which cuts the production time of my Crusaders in half. So see, working with a teammate, all you gotta do is get him to step into an independent city's borders and build some of your best units in half the time. It's just that simple, right? Well, eventually he does it. Mickey actually moves his unicorn away, and I have to make him come back and do it. In his city battle, he and I were able to talk through some of the details, which might have helped him save a unit, may not have. I was hoping it would help him save his hero, but the enemy leader had to cast a spell to take Bob's hero out. It was still a much better example of us working together and communicating than the earlier battle when I forgot to tell him that the enemy Mammoth Rider was bleeding. And here I go. Declare war, become evil, get happy, build Crusaders faster. I actually didn't realize at the time that that's what was going to happen. I apparently went back after I ended this video and changed my city production. I canceled building the public baths and started building Crusaders. So I should have a full army of 6 Crusaders in 5 turns due to the 1 Crusader I already have built. Those 6 Crusaders will go down in the dungeon, clear it, and then swim around or take a boat around to go clear the Haunted Boneyard, and then start moving down towards the center of the map to defend against the enemy. Here's our current map. The black lines are me, purple lines are Bob, green lines are the elf necromancer, red lines are all the other enemies. In orange are some of the dwellings. Notice how they seem to be clustered in the northwest and southeast. And in yellow I've circled the cave entrances. The one up in the northeast we haven't found yet. I'm just assuming there's going to be one up there. There may not, but there usually is one in all the corners. Bob and I both have a pretty direct route at this point straight at Green's capital. It should fall in our next episode. If not, then in episode 5. I did find that white army towards the end of the episode. It's moving east at the moment. I don't know if it will continue. I don't know if there's more to that army. If I do run into resistance from white, I could have problems with it because Theocrats aren't especially great against Archdruids. Otherwise, the next episode should go pretty well. There's not a whole lot of ways that the enemies can get into my land. I've had scouts around there and haven't even seen an enemy army in the northwest. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm a little bit concerned about what's south of Bob. I don't think there's anything southwest, but directly south of him there might be something. There could even be a big white army at the moment. I'm not overly worried about that, but it is a potential threat. And here is where I expect our borders to be after next episode. I will take the 2 smaller green cities, hold them, I will migrate them to orcs. That should get me to pure evil. I'll let Bob take the elf throne, and the elves probably will have another city somewhere that will become independent once we take their throne and kill their leader. If that's to the south, it would probably be better if Bob gets that, just so I don't have one city sticking out in the middle of nowhere. But these borders should be pretty easy to defend. Assuming there's no one south of Bob, he'd really only have to worry about armies coming across the water there like the White Army is. That should be reasonably easy for him to defend. And on my portion of the border, I have a lot of rivers and mountains protecting me. There will probably be 2 or 3 points where enemies can come, but I should have no problem with that, especially if I can get some watchtowers to see them coming. At that point, the only thing we'll really need to be concerned about is enemies coming through the cave entrances. I'm not at much of a threat since the one to my north is behind a bunch of rapids. It would take them several turns to get around that and attack my cities. The one in the middle of the map I should be able to defend against since that's where the bulk of my army is going to be. Bob might have trouble with cave entrances, but there don't seem to be any enemies down there at the immediate moment, so that's something we can worry about in the future. Thanks for watching, especially those of you who stayed and watched the whole thing. Be sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and check out my first 2 episodes if you haven't already. I've linked to Bob's playlist in the description if you want to see his perspective in battles and hear some of our team discussion. Episode 4 should be up on Friday. I'll see you then.